Japanese game fowl. The rain stopped. I saw the grass was wet, then I heard a cock crow. An authentic record by Sergeant M. H. Waldron, United States Marine Corps. Yokosuka, Japan. When I came to Japan in December 1951, I thought I already had a fair knowledge of the Shamo fowl. I had read all the available literature and had seen a few specimens which were said to be typical of the breed. In common with other southern cockers, I was inclined to condemn the Shamo without further trial as a dunghill with quarrelsome habits, but surely not a game fowl. But when after no small difficulty, I was at last privileged to see the true fighting fowl of Japan perform in the pit, under strict rules which have been adopted to fit his peculiar fighting qualities, I soon became convinced that there is no nobler game cock anywhere on earth. For many years fought only in naked heels, he is now often fought in standard gaffs and sometimes even in slashers. He is consistently a good performer in gaffs. Slashers are not suited to his style of fighting. In my opinion, they detract from the sport wherever used. They introduce too large an element of chance, leaving little to the skill of the gallant fighters who wear them. No doubt, any account of the Shamo fowl should be prefaced by something of his history. In this I have had scarcely any more luck than other writers who have been forced to give up in the face of impenetrable mystery. In this respect it would be well to keep in mind that the Japanese people are not greatly given to the keeping of exact chronological records of any kind. The past is peopled with legendary figures who stalk in full reality besides the actual historical forms of warriors and of emperors. Written records are often only the fanciful words of poets. Beautiful old prints, though unsurpassed as works of art, are stylized and inaccurate. At first I was puzzled to arrive at an understanding of the meaning of the name, Shamo. From existing literature I had been led to believe that it simply meant Siamese fowl. My Japanese friends assured me that this is not so. Perhaps the name originally did refer to place of origin, but an exact translation of its present meaning among Japanese cocking fraternity is difficult. In fact, it would seem to be more in the nature of a title than a name. Perhaps it would best be expressed in English as of noble blood, or lordly. It comes close to a duplication of the Indian and Malay term, Raja, which is applied to game fowl of various strains, but only to those of purest breeding and a long and honorable reputation as dauntless adversaries in the pit. It should be noted that the term, Raja, is also used as a name, or title, for other highly respected animals such as the sacred temple cats of Burma. So both Shamo and Raja may be considerable as honorable titles of nobility reserved for a ruling caste which is set forever aside from the common herd. Other writers have noted that there seems to be little standardization among Shamo fowl and that they appear to be an indiscriminate mixture of various weights and several rather poorly defined types. I believe that this opinion is largely due to the fact that the few Shamos imported into other countries in times past have rarely been of good quality. Then too, they have often been single cocks, or at best, a pair or two. Foreign breeders have been forced to make crosses on other strains which have been of divergent and sometimes inferior type or from stock which have been kept as show birds, rather than as pit-proved game fowl. The Japanese cocker is just as prone to make experimental crosses as are his brethren throughout the world. Therefore, it is freely admitted that the general term, Shamo, even in Japan, includes a great many fowl which diverge from what might be called the ideal type. Just as with other crosses, many of these birds are most superior fighting fowl. Nevertheless, there are two distinct types, perhaps more properly called breeds, of true pit Shamos, recognized in Japan. The Tochigi strain has been kept in its purity for many years in the Tochigi Ken Game Fowl Preservation at Shinji-gun, Sakimura, near Tokyo. This is the heavyweight bird which has been described as resulting from a Malay cross and as not always being game. Other writers have described specimens weighing up to 18 pounds. I have searched in vain for anything weighing more than 15 pounds. 15-pound cocks are considered freaks and are very uncommon. These extreme heavyweights may often be game in spirit, but they are too slow and clumsy to be considered fighting games. The top weight of a pit fowl is 12 pounds. For practical purposes, 9½ pounds is the maximum weight which will give good performance in the pit. The Tochigi Shamo, when bred pure, is always of the primitive black-red pattern with yellow legs. Very high, stationed. It sometimes carries a single, but unserrated comb reminiscent of the Java jungle fowl, Gallus varius. The fleshy, heavy rose comb found on some is probably the result of an outcross. These are high-breaking and hard-shuffling birds. When bred for the pit, these birds are dead game. Admittedly, Japanese farmers sometimes keep a few of these birds as dual-purpose meat and egg producers. In these circumstances they may degenerate into somewhat quarrelsome barnyard fowl. The other strain is the Chiba Shamo, maintained in its pure state at the Chiba Game Fowl Preservation at Tsudanumamaki, also near Tokyo. This is the foundation stock from which the best pit fowl of Japan are obtained. They vary in weight from 6½ to 9½ pounds. Heavier specimens equaling the weight of the lighter members of the Tochigi strain. Usually medium stationed, they have rose combs and come in great variety of color. Shanks are not always yellow, and this is not considered a matter of importance. They are among the most aggressive of naked heel fighters. Many experts consider them fully equal to the best seal. Any suspicion that the Shamo is a slow fighter is quickly dispelled when they are seen in action. Their extremely long necks give them an advantage over other Orientals, bill fighting being of no small importance in this style of combat. The Shamo of any strain or cross is always distinguished by his proud, upright carriage. All other considerations put aside, I maintain that he has no equal in the poultry world, perhaps none among other living things, when considered as a thing of beauty in form, line and color. In motion, he combines an alert dignity with a graceful style that is a joy to see. The Tochigi Preservation publishes a monthly bulletin devoted to the Shamo. From this and other Japanese literature on the subject, I am informed that the Shamo is derived from ancestral stock brought from China centuries ago. There are references to birds brought from Java, but the Chinese origin seems to be a matter of general acceptance. Continually, there are references stating that the birds came from a high mountain district of China. This is rather puzzling, since, except for the short Taishan range in nearby Shantung province, the mountainous districts of China are in the far west and southwest sections of that sprawling country and have always been almost completely inaccessible. But the old source material insists that the birds come from the distant Qinlong Mountains. This would seem to be fantastic, until a study is made of the population movements of Asiatic peoples. Then what was previously a puzzle seems to be quite credible. We will find that the ancient Shan peoples had their origin in the Qinlong Mountains, but in the 7th century A.D., they began a slow migration which carried them through Yunnan and south into Assam, Burma, Siam and Indochina. The word Shan in China is used to denote mountain, mountaineer, and, roughly, as a geographical term for Siam and the adjacent illy defined districts of Southeast Asia surrounding it. This probably should be translated as the land of the Shans, or Thai, rather than as the political subdivision known to us as Siam, or Thailand. This lingual peculiarity can easily account for the fact that other writers have placed the origin of the Shamo in Siam. In the light of the above, it does not seem unreasonable that the remote ancestor of the present-day Shamo came from that same vast Central Asiatic hinterland which cradled other domestic animals and, perhaps, the human race. But his direct introduction to Japan probably came by way of Japanese trading expeditions, or piratical forays, along the coasts of the Gulf of Tonkin. The Shan peoples were the predominant race here during the time of Japanese commercial expansion which ended with the decree of the Tokugawa shoguns which closed Japan to all foreigners and to all commerce, and turned Japan into a hermit nation. This period of seclusion lasted 200 years and ended only when Commodore Perry sailed into the Bay of Yedo. There is little evidence that the Shamo fowl has changed to any great extent in the 100 years following the imperial restoration. So the characteristics which distinguished it from other oriental game fowl must have been developed by selection, possibly aided by mutation and climate influence, during the 17th, 18th centuries. No doubt there was some introduction of a seal, Captain and, possibly Sumatra, blood into the predominantly Central Asian stock. This was probably done both prior to and following the introduction into Japan. There has only recently been unearthed an interesting sidelight on another breed of poultry which serves to corroborate the theory of origin just described. This has to do with the so-called Japanese silkie of the black, flesh and bones. It has long been known that this breed did not originate in Japan. The Chinese also had it, and there had been a theory that it originated from some wild ancestor, native to Java or Sumatra. Scientific expeditions made into and near these same Kinlung Mountains only shortly before the country was closed by the communists, reported that the feasts prepared in their honor by the native headmen contained quantities of black-fleshed chickens. This item has not received much publicity, but it would seem to add credence to the theory that the Shamo and the silkie may easily have found their way to Japan along parallel lines from the most remote district of southwest China. When American and European commercial penetration started, approximately 100 years ago, the Shamo was the prized possession of every noble and landowner. Proud owners of these proud birds were numbered in thousands. The naked heel cockfighting fraternity of Japan was almost as numerous and enthusiastic as that of the Philippines today. Today, it is a different story. A number of magnificent specimens are maintained in public preservations, almost as curiosities. But the public interest in the game fowl and cockfighting, already dwindling, was dealt a most disastrous blow by a world war which drained Japan of her natural resources and almost banished many elements of the old life. Soon after the war was over, the California Cornish Breeders Association sent a representative to Japan to bring back specimens of the Shamo fowl for the purpose of conducting some experimental matings. He was unable to find anything at all and returned empty-handed. But a few of the old devotees kept a pair or two of their choicest birds. Just as in other lands where the game fowl has been persecuted, he has failed to die. The old strains still live and the numbers are now slowly increasing. It should be borne in mind that cockfighting in Japan, within recent years, is no longer a national sport as it is in the Philippines. The general public has no interest in it, though there is little evidence of active antagonism against it on the part of private individuals. Oriental peoples are more given to a spirit of live and let live, no doubt fostered by the fact that many generations learned to live in harmony by keeping out of other people's business. The Japanese government has placed cockfighting under the ban of the imperial anti-gambling laws. To a people who have been addicted to many forms of gambling from time beyond record, these laws are regarded as an absurdity. Prohibition works hardly any better with the Japanese than it does with anybody else. Even so, it is an annoyance and has contributed to the disappearance of the sport in some localities. In other districts there has been a distinct revival. Perhaps some of the added interest is due to the fact that some cockers are now converting the Shamo into a steel fighter. Whether this is a good thing for the sport in Japan is a subject open for debate. To those who have seen the light or medium-weight Shamo in gaffs, there is no longer any doubt that he can stand up under steel. To those who consider cockfighting a cruel sport, the use of steel seems to add an element of further cruelty. There is hardly a subject for debate here. To those who know him, the fighting cock, of whatever breed, is a symbol of courage, tenacity and mobility. These undying elements of his character have caused his perpetuation through the ages. Those who oppose the sport for which he lives are no friends of the fighting cock. They seek only to destroy him and, in doing so, to deprive the earth of one more of its fast decreasing elements of primordial strength and beauty. But as previously mentioned, the conversion of the Shamo into a steel fighter has sincere opponents among the cocking fraternity. He was developed, over hundreds of years, to stand up to the long, Grueling test of the naked heel fight. There are some grounds for the contention that putting him in gaffs is a demotion. Many true Shamo enthusiasts claim that this places him on a level with lesser fowl who have no need for his stronger limb and heart. To be continued, saw in June and July G&Amp. S. The growing interest in Oriental fowl. Also page 35 June G&Amp. S. A Mr. Zabeshir's once description on Shamo Japs. You could probably reprint my information about them that appeared in January 1955 grams and amp. S. Also see pictures. Master Sergeants M. H. Waldron D.C. ed.